Good afternoon and welcome to the 9th Annual Radio TV Film Pro Perspectives Panel at the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. I'm your host, Matilda Cretens, and thank you for joining us live on Titan TV and 90.3 WRST FM Oshkosh. During today's program, we'll be joined by three of the youngest Radio TV Film alumni to appear on this panel. We will discuss a variety of topics ranging from their time at UWO to their success in finding a job in the media industry. I know our guests are excited to share their insight with all of you, so let me introduce them. Our first guest graduated from UW-Oshkosh in 2012 with a radio TV film major and a minor in creative writing. He has worked as an editor on television shows Wipeout and Married at First Sight. He has also worked for Shareability, a production company that makes viral videos. Currently, he works for the CW Network as a producer-editor in their branded content division. Please welcome Joe Chattel. Our next guest is a 2014 graduate who majored in communications with minors in radio, TV, film, and journalism. She currently works as an associate producer at Disney ABC Television Group, where she is involved in launching and sustaining the network's marketing campaigns. She has worked on the TV shows The Good Doctor, American Idol, Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder, the 2017 Oscars campaign, and the Billboard Music Awards. Paige was also the 2017 recipient of the Synopsis Rising Star Award, which recognizes the best and brightest in TV media industry, professionals under 30. She is also being honored at the Alumni Awards celebration tonight, receiving the Outstanding Young Alumni Award for her work in the industry thus far. Please give a warm welcome to Paige Bonanno. Last but not least, this guest graduated from UWO in 2016. Double majoring in radio, TV, film, and journalism, she is currently the social media coordinator for Milwaukee Tool, an industry-leading manufacturer of heavy-duty power tools, hand tools, and accessories for professional users worldwide. And just a few years ago, this guest was sitting here, in my shoes, hosting the panel. Everyone, please welcome Regan Wallander. To provide the audience with some background and knowledge about what you do, could we start about talking about your jobs a little bit? Could each of you please give me a brief overview of your responsibilities at your current job? Let's start with Regan.
I tweet. No, it's a lot more than that, but yeah, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, rest in peace Google+, Pinterest, every digital platform that Milwaukee Tool utilizes. That's me.
Cool. Paige?
Nice. Yeah, I work as an associate producer at ABC, so we're launching and sustaining all the network's marketing campaigns. As an associate producer, I write, produce, and edit a variety of different spots and digital campaigns and basically all of our short-form content that goes out on the network.
Awesome.
I'm a producer-editor at the CW, which is also a Predator, which is the coolest name of all time, but at the same time, slightly concerning.
A little creepy.
Yeah, just a little bit. So basically, day to day, I'm more of an editor. Day to day, content comes in that we shoot, whether it's stuff that comes from the actual episodes that are on the shows, or stuff that we shot. We'll put it together with kind of integrated marketing, things like companies like Microsoft, stuff like that, Apple. They'll want to promote in these shows, but they don't want to make it like a direct commercial. So you kind of turn these things into interesting creative content around a company. So that's that.
Yeah. Now I'd like to take you back to your time at UWO. Regan and Joe, when did you first know that you wanted to be an RTF major? Let's start with Joe.
I've been editing and making things on VHS when I was in third grade. So I've always wanted to do this. So a big reason I came to Oshkosh was for the program here. And yeah, it just was great. I learned more here, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but I learned more here than I could have imagined, and you learn so much more here than you realized, because when we were out in Hollywood and everything, you've got so many steps above everybody else in terms of the knowledge that you have.
That's good to know. Regan?
I would say for me, it was just, I always knew I loved media, and that was so broad, and I didn't really know where I wanted to take that. But with the RTF program, you get your feet wet in so many different things that you can really find your path, so that's really what drew me here. So I'd say I was an RTFer from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Paige, you were not an RTF major, but an RTF minor. What led you to taking up radio, TV, film as a minor, and how do you use your minor in relation to your work?
Sure, yeah. So I was a communication major, and then I double minored in journalism and radio, TV, film. I thought the RTF program was amazing. I personally, my career has pivoted since, but I originally wanted to go into hosting and doing on-air stuff like that. So I didn't want to major in RTF just because I wanted to do communications because it was a little more broad for me personally. So, I mean, with my RTF minor, I use it every day just as if it was a major. I mean, it was just as good for me being a minor, and I truly use all three of my departments in my job today, especially RTF.
Yes. Let's change our focus a little bit and look into the classes that you all took to help prepare you for your jobs in the field. What were some of the most valuable classes that you took in either RTF or another discipline? Let's start with Paige.
Honestly, the news production class is one that really sticks out to me because we were able to do each different do all the legwork from operating the camera to, you know, being up in the room and producing it to hosting to doing the lighting and everything. And I mean, the amount of times Justine made me rap a chord, I was pretty annoyed by it at the time, but I mean, it's honestly helped me. And I was thinking, okay, why am I rapping this chord all the time? But I, as a PA in Hollywood, had to do that multiple times. So I will say that this news production class was very valuable to me. And it's truly the class, I think, out of all of my classes, in communication and journalism, anything, that's the one that sticks out to me the most, is the news production in radio, TV, film. It was a great class.
Joe?
I mean, everything. Doug's script writing class was great. I didn't know much about how to actually format a script or anything. I just knew I had ideas and I liked to write them down, and so that really helped me figure out how to just in general develop a script. I think that was super helpful, and how important that played into story sense with everything I do. So editing, producing, everything I've done since I've been out in LA has been, or even I worked in Milwaukee in news a long time. I learned a lot of how to structure a story through that script, and then I brought that into everything I've done. But realistically, like, all my classes here are great. Everything with Troy, Justine, it's so good.
Regan?
I think my favorite would probably have been my capstone. It was like transmedia design something with Andy Smock. And by that point in your college career, I already knew that I wanted to take social media path, and that class was very liberal with what you wanted to do as your final project, so you could really tailor it to, okay, well, I need to learn this, this, and this yet, or I'm not comfortable with this, so how can I bring that into my final project? And so that final project I did, which was a podcast, it was a ton of fun, and that was probably my favorite project that I did ever.
Sounds awesome.
I'll also say any classes with editing where you work on Premiere or Final Cut Pro, like, take as many of those classes as you can because it'll help you so much once you're graduated.
Just the Adobe suite in general.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now for students who don't necessarily know what majors or minors to take, which ones do you think pair well together? And how did you choose which ones were right for you? Joe?
Well, if you have an interest in this industry, you're going to want to do radio, TV, film as a major. I mean, like, Paige is an example where it doesn't. It's not, yeah, I was going to say, I'm like going to.
For the most part, I agree.
I'm going to carefully walk around this. So, in reality, because it doesn't really matter, right? Take something that you're interested in. If you are interested in this industry in particular, you're going to excel in the industry. Like, there's no way around it. You learn a lot on the fly once you're actually out there, even or in here, wherever you're working. You learn a lot. But the thing is, it's all about how active you are in this department right now. Like Titan TV and any sort of after-school activity or after-class activity. Like, that's the stuff where I learned the most. You understand how, even though it's like a student production, you understand how a production operates, and that was the most important thing that I took out of it. So your major, yes, you should want to have an interest in radio, TV, film, so that probably should be your focus. But the minor is only something for school. It's only something for college. Like, do something you like so you don't have to take classes you don't like, but at the same time, it's not super important, necessarily.
Yeah.
I don't know how it plays in Milwaukee as much, I'm sure.
I'll disagree with you slightly,
Okay.
just because I have a double major. So I started as a journalism minor. I don't think I ever actually declared it, because I just didn't really know where I wanted to go. So I just started taking journalism classes to see if I liked them. Turns out I did. And by the time I was so far in, I was just like, well, might as well just make it another major because I could have the PR emphasis tacked onto that. So yes, in a sense, like we are in a very crazy evolving world where your creative writing minor really brought you into editing. You know, communications is so broad. But with journalism, like that's my writing side of social media. So I didn't really get that with RTF, but I got all of the Adobe stuff where I'm doing all the creative, the social media background, the digital communications aspect of it was all my RTF stuff.
Yeah.
So the minor is still important, but we live in a crazy world where everything is so integrated, you can make anything work.
Yeah, I will say that for me personally, like I wouldn't, if I had to go back and change my major and my minors, I wouldn't do it. What I did was perfect for me, and I think you guys have to do what you feel like is perfect for you. And I knew from the start that this is what I wanted to do. But looking back, I will say that I think for my job right now, radio, TV, film helped me more than I ever thought it would have. I thought my communications was very broad and it would get me into basically whatever area I wanted to be in, which it did. But the thing that I use the most in my job is my RTF minor. So, I mean, you guys have to do whatever is right for you, but there's a lot of great things that pair well together. And in the end, I mean, if you have a major that you're applying to a job that doesn't always say that that major is something that they look for, apply for it anyways. As long as you guys have the experience, if you're doing Titan TV and you're doing WRST and you're writing for the Advanced Titan, if you guys are doing those extracurriculars and you have the experience to back it up, it really doesn't matter what your major is or what your minor is, as long as you're getting those experiences from the classes that you're taking.
Yeah. Now let's talk about everyone's involvement outside of the classroom. What kind of projects or productions did you work on in student organizations? Regan?
I was very actively involved in Titan TV. I produced a lot of shows. I was on the executive board. Really outside of the classroom is what emphasized and you could really put to the test what you're learning about. So extracurriculars is honestly where you like push yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I anchored for Titan TV, I wrote for the Advanced Titan, and I also did some stuff for WRST. But I will say, in retrospect, I focused a lot on being on the camera in Titan TV when there's so many different things that you can do in Titan TV, and I wouldn't limit yourself to one thing. Like, I was like, okay, I want to be on camera, so this is what I'm going to do at Titan TV. And I don't think I took enough time to, produce the shows and to direct the shows and to work behind the camera, because even if you think that those are things that you don't want to do, which at the time I thought I didn't want to do, I'm using those skills every single day. So my news production classes were very beneficial to me because I was able to put that to use in those classes, even though at the time I was like, oh, I just want to be on the camera. But for now, I mean, I still do things on camera, like kind of for fun in LA, but that's not my main focus anymore. So take advantage of everything that you can, regardless of if you're like, oh, I think that I want to do this. You never know. So there's so many great things to utilize here, and I would just do as much as you possibly can.
I think that's relatable that you said that even though you might be focused on one thing, that you should try more. The more you try, the better, right?
Yeah, and I think like Justine would be like, all right, Paige, you got to go do something else now. Go behind the camera for a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay. But it benefited me so much, and having those skills under my belt, I mean, if I would have just focused on that, then I wouldn't have those skills. So
you show an appreciation for other things. So even though I'm not doing any camera work, when I work with our photo team, I know what needs to happen. I know that they need a shot list. I know what goes on for their job to be successful, which helps my job be successful.
And you can put yourself in their shoes as well. So a lot of people don't know how those divisions work. So they can treat them certain ways or think that they know what's going on. But if you don't have that knowledge, then you really can't treat them with the way that they should be. So it's great to just know every avenue, because then you really know what everybody's doing.
Joe?
100% agree with all that. The first thing I ever did, I came here with the mindset of I want to be a director. That's what I want to do. And everybody wants to be a director. And so it's challenging to step on your first shoot as a freshman and be like, I'm going to hold the boom. And that's my job. And so, for a little bit, it took me a little bit to think of that, or to really accept that. And then once I did, you guys are right. It's every little thing you can do on set. while you're being a grip, whether you're setting up a light. Oh my gosh, setting up lights is so important. Please set up lights. Like so often you're on set, and unless you're on like a big set and there's a union, but so often on set, it's like everybody's trying to find a way to save a buck, so like they won't have enough people to do something, so like you got to be on the fly, and setting up a light like gets you noticed right away. All that stuff's great, but yeah, when I was here, it's all Titan TV, any sort of film activity we could get into. I produced or directed, I worked on the executive board.
Yeah.
It was a blast. Really, just extracurriculars were so important. Like every weekend we were trying to do something and just make something, because like classwork is really important, but it's taking that stuff out and actually using it that gives you the experience you need.
I will say I totally agree with you about being able to set up lights. I mean, it's something so simple, but you become so valuable when you graduate. And if you guys want to move to LA or New York or whatever you want to do, I mean, there's been so many. You're probably going to start off as a PA, and when you start off as a PA, if you can go into your interview and say, "I know how to set up lights, I know how to work the camera, I know how to work the microphones," you become so valuable to that employer. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that they've turned down because they don't know how to do those things, and they'll hire people because of those skills, regardless of everything else. So, I mean, it's very important.
I'm glad all of you remember your experiences here, but for those of you who are not familiar with our panelists' work, we have a surprise for you.
Wow. Oh no, I'm nervous.
Been a busy week here at UW Oshkosh. I'm Brandon Kinnard.
And I'm Paige Bonanno. Vice President Joe Biden stopped by UW Oshkosh on Friday, October 26th. Titan 57 news reporter Katie Kildall has more on this event.
UW Oshkosh held its annual drag show on Thursday, April 25th at 8 o'clock p.m. in the Reeve Ballroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 7th annual Radio TV Film Pro Perspectives panel at UW Oshkosh. I'm your host, Regan Wallander.
Back up.
Thank you.
When I tell you, you'll pour it in, and then you'll want to take a step back.
Okay.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, go. Pour it all in. Okay, step back.
Oh my God!
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Oh my God, I'm so excited right now.
It's yellow.
I bruised a kidney. My legs are straight up cramping.
Stay standing.
But for Titan News, I'm Joe Chattel, man on the street.
That's great, you guys. Thank you. That's awesome. The glory days.
I hope that made you guys remember some of the good times that you had here.
Joe should tell Man on the Street. I mean, that was a good gig.
I mean, if you have a mic, we can go around the audience and we can just
Man on the street right now.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't trade Oshkosh for anything in the world.
No.
Like, all the stuff we did here was awesome.
I 100% agree. There's so much stuff that you can do. And I always say that, too. When I first was deciding on where I wanted to go to school, I did not think I wanted to go to Oshkosh. And honestly, like, I thought I needed to go to Madison or Minnesota or something
Large school.
big in order to be considered successful. And honestly, looking back at my time at Oshkosh, I would not change a thing. Oshkosh was an amazing university. I have so much pride for this campus and everything that the university has brought me. And I honestly feel like, I mean, the only reason I got my job was because a UW Oshkosh alumni took a chance on me. And I mean, the same can happen for everybody else. It's an amazing campus, and I mean, I just love it so much.
I like it a lot. Too. I'm glad I'm here. You know, enjoy it. Yeah, right? Yeah. Paige, you were involved not only in Titan TV, but WRST and the Advanced Titan as well. How did you manage to get involved in all three of them?
Yeah, I think it was because of the majors and minors that I chose. All of these extracurricular activities were always being talked about in everywhere that I went. In journalism, it was like, you should join the Advanced Titan or you know, do PRSSA or anything like that. So I just really thought it would be valuable to hone all of those skills in whichever areas that I could. You know, I didn't want to do anything with radio, but I knew that that skill was valuable to be able to work the soundboard and, you know, your stage presence even with your voice. So doing WRST really helped me a lot. Titan TV was an amazing tool, and writing for the Advanced Titan, I mean, helped hone my journalism skills and writing skills that I still use today.
Yeah. For Regan and Joe, having served on Titan TV Executive Board while here at UWO, what aspects of serving on the board have helped you in your past or current jobs?
I would say my organization skills, because I'm already a very organized person, but when you start tacking on multiple shows that you're trying to keep organized and multiple students that you're trying to meet up with, plus your personal life and other jobs and schoolwork, it can all get really jumbled really, really quickly. And I would say my organization skills were at their top tier when I was on the exec board. Oh yeah. I still color code to this day now.
My executive board was not as organized, but that's okay.
Because you didn't have me.
It's true, you're right. In terms of, I guess, communication, in terms of emailing, managing, it's weird, right? Like you're students working with students, so there's no hierarchy. But you do get a sense when I was station manager and even ops, just the way you communicate with shows and scheduling and trying to help everybody out to be successful. That's the biggest thing I've taken away from it, because a lot of stuff you don't realize when you become a PA how fast people will ask you, hey, send an email to this person to communicate with them. And it's all about being thorough in that email and treating yourself, like speaking professionally to somebody else. And I think that right away, that was the thing that I took into the industry, was just how to properly communicate with people to execute tasks.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, how important is it for students to get involved with different organizations that relate to their major? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but was there one really sole thing that was this helped me so much?
I mean, overall, I think we kind of just do it. Do as many things as you can, seriously. I mean, you have no idea when they're going to help you, if they're going to help you, but to have those experiences on your resume is the most important part, especially being close to graduation. If some of you are, those extracurricular activities. I mean, I've had employers when I had a couple internships, but I hadn't had jobs yet, that were like, oh, I see that you worked at your school's radio station and your school's TV station. Tell me about that. And they're basically considered jobs. I mean, you learn so many skills from those, and those are so transferable onto your resume when you're first applying for jobs, because I mean, you don't have those real life job skills yet. But also, I mean, internships. Take as many internships as you can. I think I had 5 throughout college. And, don't be afraid also to take an internship after you graduate, because I did that. And a lot of the times, you feel like, oh, I'm graduating. The expectation is that I need to get a full-time job right when I graduate. But that's not the truth. You can intern. You should intern. It'll just help you gain as many skills as you can.
You're right on target with the transition into internships, because internships are a great way for students to get a taste of what a job in their field might be like. Did any of you have those internships before obtaining jobs in the field, and how did they help you?
So let somebody else take it.
So I interned for a college baseball team called the Bullfrogs up in Green Bay, and I was a marketing intern, and that's where they were just, as an intern, it's modern day slavery essentially, but they're just like, Photoshop, here, do this. And then game day, we need somebody to talk in front of all these people. You go do it. And so because I was so versatile, I did a multitude of things in the summer that I was with them, and showing that I was willing to do that. I wasn't scared to go run around in like a Goodwill wedding dress around the bases. The GM of the team looked me in the eyes on my last day, and she said, if you need anything, you let me know. And so showing that you're ready to kick butt, that's going to help you, because you're going to need letters of recommendation someday.
Joe?
I'm a bad example. I didn't have any internships. But that's not to say. Yeah, that's not to say that I don't regret that. I was me and the group of friends that I was with, we were very actively involved in trying to make as much content as we could for Titan TV. So any time I had on the weekend or after class was devoted to that. So that's what we were doing. But it's super important, what you guys already talked about, because when you come out of school, your resume is going to look empty to everybody, no matter how much you do. And so the internships are the only things that are considered real jobs, even though you're not getting paid for it. So you can work on a million short films, you can work on a million Titan TV shows, but nobody's going to know that outside of the Oshkosh area. So you have to, and that's not to say you can't build a reel and show them that you're plenty talented to handle what you're doing. But the internships are the real career things that, because at the end of the day, and we'll probably talk about resumes in a bit, but line items is all that matters on your resume. You can write as much as you want underneath to hype yourself up, but a lot of times that doesn't play out of anything. If you've got like 3 seconds to get someone's attention, they're going to look at what experience you have by how many line items you've worked.
And I will say though, at least you were out there making content.
Sure,
Because
yeah.
That's another thing
Yeah.
too, is like if maybe you haven't gotten the chance to do an internship yet and you're close to graduation, well then get out there and make as much content as you can, because that is just as valuable to be able to say, hey, look at what I made, and to just make sure that you're honing your skills and constantly practicing and doing things. So just do as much as you can.
And just to reiterate what they've already said, and you guys have heard, but I'm going to say it again, because when I was in this room, I would hear it right away, and I wouldn't necessarily take it in. But like, you have to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like you won't be able to get a job just out of school with a degree. Like, you have to be involved in something, one particular field, so that you can have that leg up on anybody else that's blind applying for the job. Because it's really hard to compete just with a sheet of paper.
It's vital.
Yeah.
Vital.
Paige, you had so many internships. Was there anything from one of those or all of them that you really took away from that experience?
Yeah, my first internship was at Fox 6 News in Milwaukee. Then I went out and interned for Wipeout. And then I actually interned at Career Services for a while before I interned for Disney ABC. And I will say my internship at Career Services helped me, I think, the most, and that was when I was on campus. I held that one for about 1.5 years. And that's where I really, aside from these classes, learned like to hone my editing skills. And that's pretty much how I got the job that I have now, is from learning all those skills within that internship at Career Services. It was a video production intern. So being able to do all that, I went every day after school. That, I think, helped me the most.
Campus jobs are actually really cool because
Yeah.
they're going to work around your class schedule. They're very understanding that you're a student, but they're constantly looking for RTFers. I worked at ResLife as their social media coordinator. It was I got paid. They worked around my class schedule, and I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. It's obviously on a much lower scale than what I currently do, but I mean, it reinforces like, oh, I'm doing something right. I like this.
Yeah, and also, I mean, my internship at Career Services was probably the least glamorous of the other internships, you know, with Disney and Wipeout and stuff, but that was the one that taught me the most and really helped me the most. So it doesn't always have to be this big glamorous internship where you're at this huge company that, you know, you feel like you're in that. Doing those smaller internships are the most important ones, I think.
And Regan, you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about letters of recommendation. Have you used any of those contacts, like for further on in your career?
Yeah, I mean, right when you graduate and you're applying, well, any job you apply for, they're going to ask for recommendations. So obviously ask somebody to put their phone number or whatever down on an application. I don't know if they're ever contacted. That's an HR thing. But, I mean, making those connections is just so important because you need somebody to speak highly of you, and they're not going to speak highly of you if they don't think you're worth it.
Did either of you have any connections?
Yeah, so I got my job through Brenda Lau, who was RTF. I think she majored in RTF, but she's since retired from Disney ABC. She was on this panel last year, and so I met her in an alumni panel and was so interested in her job that I just waited to talk to her afterwards. But the thing I will say is it's not enough to just meet that person and say, okay, nice to meet you, and then reach out to them again when you're looking for a job. I mean, you have to keep up this relationship. You want to reach out to them, or you want to meet them and reach out to them and say, you know, I'm really interested, I want to learn more about you, and talk to them, and don't at the end of the conversation say, okay, so do you have a job for me? You have to make that relationship and then revisit it and really build a connection, and then go to that person and say, okay, now I'm moving out to LA. I'd love to, you know, talk about jobs. It's, you know, even have informationals with people. I don't know, even now I still set coffee meetings with people that I'm interested in meeting with, not for a job, but just to meet them and get to know them, so I have them as a contact maybe later down the road.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Joe?
It's all really good advice.
All right. So moving on, how did you all find your first job in the industry? Like, what resources did you use? How did that end up working out for you? Joe?
I got dangerously close to not working in the industry. I have been very much a settled person. I grew up in Hartford, which is like a small town in southeastern Wisconsin. And so for a while I was like, well, I was in a long-term relationship. I knew I was going to get married. And I was like, well, I just want to start a family and like have a house and do all that stuff, live the dream. And my wife wouldn't accept that, fiance at the time wouldn't accept that. And so she sent my resume to one of our friends in LA, and that's how I got connected with Kevin Warenberg. And 3 weeks later, I was on Wipeout. So she did it for me. Yeah, she forced it into it, which is the best thing she's ever done, because I've always loved this. I've loved this forever. And if I would have settled to just do, whatever job to make money and get a house, I would have been, miserable. So now I'm doing what I love, and it's all because of my beautiful wife.
And it takes a lot. I mean, sometimes it's really hard. You do feel settled, and you
Yeah.
don't want to leave your families all the time. I mean, granted, there are jobs around here, obviously.
There's
There
a
are
bunch,
jobs in
yeah.
Chicago. I mean, there's a ton of stuff here if you want to stay here. But if you want to move to LA or you want to move to New York, I mean, it's tough. Like, I totally get that. You move to a new huge city and you don't know people. But the alumni network in LA is great. There's a ton of people out there. But it's easy to get settled, and, that's okay if that's what you want, but make sure that you're putting yourself out there and you're really making sure that that's what you want to do, and go for it.
For sure. I would say after I graduated, I would sit down on the couch every night and just apply for jobs. I knew that LA did not interest me, Chicago max, maybe Minneapolis, but I was really looking at the Milwaukee area because I knew that I would get what I wanted out of Milwaukee. And just apply for jobs that interested me, the company interested me. I had a spreadsheet so that you could keep track.
Back to organization.
Well, no, because it was actually really helpful, because they call different job titles different things everywhere. I might be a digital communications manager or a social media coordinator, or so if I did get a call that, hey, we're looking, we'd like to interview you, I'd go back to my spreadsheet and remember what job I actually applied for. Every portal needs a different login and password. You gotta keep track of it. Organization.
So when employers read your resume, what are they looking for? You mentioned line items.
Yeah, so it's going to be different, and we've got a good selection up here, because this will be nice. Okay, so in LA, it's really complicated, because especially as you start getting deeper and deeper beyond just PA stuff, it is all about how many line items you have, like how many shows you've done, how many projects you've worked on. People are looking to see that you have a bunch of experience, and they're looking to see what the title is next to it. And if your experience can match that title, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And to be honest, and this is the worst part about it, is a lot plays into some people that you know too. It's like you can get a big advantage if you just even are an acquaintance with somebody that works in some variation of that company.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate, because you can be crazy talented, but if you don't, it's very hard to get a job and blind apply to it out in LA. It's like really hard.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I don't know how many jobs I applied to in LA before I got my job now. It's like you really have to know somebody. And I hated hearing that so much when I was in college. It's like, network. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I need to network. But you do need to network. It sucks hearing it a million times, but kind of goes back to what I said before about informationals. Set up those things ahead of time, because then when the job becomes available, then you can reach back out to that person, because it's so hard to just apply blindly. It really is.
Unfortunately, it's still the networking applies outside of LA. The reason I have my job is because I knew people at Milwaukee Tool. So they passed my resume on, and next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call from a crazy Australian who's now my boss. I still don't know if he's saying my name right. So, it is all about networking, who you know, because you never know what opportunity is going to be presented to you. I wasn't necessarily looking for a new job, but Milwaukee Tool was expanding, and my friends knew that, hey, she would fit this spot, check her out, and then they gave me an offer.
And I will say too, always take the meeting. Even if even if you're not sure if this is a job that you might necessarily want. I mean, there was a job that I went in for, someone reached out to me and I was like, I don't really think I want this job, but I'll go anyways. And then I met this guy who has since recommended me to 3 other people, although that job wasn't right to me. He, I didn't think that he was going to do this for me, but now I have this contact and I know this guy, and he's recommending me to all these other people. So it's like, you never know who you're going to meet. Even if you go to a job and you don't think you want to do it, take the meeting.
It's really good advice.
Yeah, I mean, before I started at Milwaukee Tool, I didn't even know they had job openings. I didn't even know what I was talking about except social media related until I sat down with them and discussed the actual, like, hey, we're adding a person, this is what you'd be in charge with. That's when during that meeting is what I learned I'm now doing.
Because it's not always online.
Exactly. I never actually applied for my job, so. The other thing that is very important though, because I still had to go through like an HR process, when you are applying for jobs, they're not just gonna make sure you're a fit for the job, they're gonna make sure you're a fit for the company. So every company has their own culture and they're gonna be making sure that you can fit within the dynamics of that company. Milwaukee Tool is very, very fast paced. If they think that you're not gonna be able to handle the stress, they're not going to hire you. So make sure that when you are applying for jobs, you can see yourself at that company too.
And also getting along with people is the most important thing I think out of anything, because you can learn the skills to do the job, but you can't learn to, I mean, you got to be able to get along with people and really like, that's the most important part. If you're a nice person and you're a genuinely good person, they can see that. So, I mean, skills can come, but you got to get along with the team.
I think that goes the longest way in any career. Yeah. As long as you're real personable, talking to somebody, stuff like that.
And that comes back to your communication skills.
That's right.
Look at that, full circle.
Have you used LinkedIn or any other social networking tools, such like the UW Oshkosh alumni Facebook page, to get any jobs or connect?
I haven't personally used the UW Oshkosh page myself, but I'm on that page and I see job postings or like people putting up jobs all the time and people getting jobs from them. So I think it's a great tool to be able to use that. And LinkedIn, 100%.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, and keep it updated. Like the next time you have a job or any Titan TV project, throw it on your LinkedIn, update your website if you have one. Keeping that maintained is very important too.
Yeah. What's some advice that you can give to someone trying to land their first job in the media industry? I know that's kind of a vague question, but
I mean, it's kind of what we just talked about, because I think we were supposed to talk about more of how your resume should look, and I think we went into this one. So yeah, it's just it's that it's being true to your personality, right? Like don't like fake anything, otherwise you'll be miserable. And realistically, so the Midwestern attitude goes a long way everywhere.
Yes.
So out here, obviously everybody's got it, but in LA, it goes super far. Everybody likes the work ethic of Midwesterners. Everybody likes how punctual you are.
So
believe it or not, the most upsetting thing, and you guys probably do it every day, is like when you're out in LA and you're walking on the sidewalk and you make eye contact with somebody, the first thing you normally do is just a quick hey. You know, right? Like everybody does that here.
Yeah.
They look at you like you're crazy in LA.
No, everybody looks down. They just
like nobody wants to make eye contact. If you make eye contact, and I just do it instinctively, just like I'm like hi, and then like right away they're like. Ugh.
Sometimes I catch myself doing that LA thing now, and I'm like, no, I gotta make eye contact with you. I'm a Midwesterner.
Help me. Anyway, it's very that like goes. I think that goes the farthest. But yeah, the formatting of your resume goes a long way too, because. The piece, like, as dumb as it is, that piece of paper does go a long way.
Yeah.
It's like all that they know of you before you sit down in front of them. So you have to like sell yourself on that piece of paper. And we haven't talked about this yet, and I wonder how you guys feel about it, but there's a lot of different ways to format your resume. And some people, it's all personal opinion, some people prefer black text on white paper, very clean and organized. Like you're filling up the page, but very clean. I'm one of the people that feels like it's your only chance to show how creative you are. So a splash of color can go a long way, formatting can go a long way, as long as it doesn't become confusing. But I don't know how that's actually played out professionally for me. Like, I wonder if my resume is, because I do that, has turned people off to it. Have you guys had any?
I personally think it's cool because we're in a creative industry. You need to show, like, it is your first impression. Yours is colorful. I have my Twitter handle as part of my signature.
Perfect.
So, because I'm in social media, it plays into what I'm trying to do. So it's just that little unique thing. It's not obnoxious. It's just a little thing that kind of might set you apart.
Yeah, I think it depends for everybody. It's like, it's different. If you're going into a sales job, I mean, it's good to have just like strict format. But I mean, mine's formatted, but I have a little splash of color here and there just to kind of like spice it up a bit. I have friends that are graphic designers that really go for it with their resumes, and that helps them get jobs because they're graphic designers, and this is perfect for them. I will say there was a guy that is now my coworker who was applying for a job at the time, and he had almost like a brochure as his resume, and he put different things into like ABC's shows. He made it specific for ABC, and our VP goes and shows people this resume because it was so creative and so specifically tailored to ABC that, I mean, she talks about it all the time. So it really depends on what you feel comfortable doing, but if you think that you might want to stand out somehow, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? It shows at least that you're more creative than just doing strictly white text over black.
Yeah, that brochure is a really
It
cool
was
idea.
pretty cool. I wish I had it as an example.
That sounds cool.
What have you all found to be the most exciting or rewarding aspects of your current job?
The first time you see something air, it's pretty awesome. Back in Wipeout, I started as a PA there, and then I was an AE, and I would do like graphics and on-air graphics and stuff like that. And the first time I saw one of my like lame photoshopped graphics up on screen, it was like the most surreal thing, because I'm like, I don't really belong here. What's going on? But that was like where it all set in. So everything since then, once like I for the last 2 years, I've done a lot in social media. Like almost all my video content has been in social media, and watching view count rise and how the share rate rises and just everything with that. It's very
taking my
cool.
answer.
I know. I'm sorry. Sorry. Oh, but yes, it's just cool seeing your stuff go live.
And that's so funny because like everybody starts off as that person. When you see something, you're like, I did that? How is that there? You know, you all start off like that. And I remember my first thing to air on TV was a 5-second spot for Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And like, I'm not a Marvel type person. I don't really like that stuff, but that was my baby. Like, I saw this 5-second spot on air that probably nobody else saw, but I was there recording it because it was my spot. And it was something that I was very proud of because, you know, you work so hard to get to where you are, and then you're doing it. You're living your dream, and to be able to see that on, you know, come off on air, and then now it's, you know, you're doing bigger stuff, and then you keep moving up and keep doing these bigger projects, but it's always like you remember that you came from Oshkosh and you started just the same as everybody else.
Well, I mean, Joe basically answered mine already, but no, like, you know, with social and digital, I mean, I'm constantly looking at the reporting aspects of it, and it's like, oh my gosh, this one post, I mean, we got like over 100 shares on this. Like, you know, everybody in the back of your mind's like, make it go viral. I'm like, that's not how it works. Yeah. But we did get 200 shares on this one post, and it's our highest engagement post, like within the last 24 hours all year. So that's pretty exciting when you see stuff like that, or just doing really fun, random stuff.
That stuff's super important, by the way, too. I didn't realize that I wasn't in a social media environment before this. I've been doing all on air. And when I learned about engagement rate and how important that is...
It's vital.
Yes. Social media, I mean, there's just... I'm taking over, sorry.
No.
I was just going to say, because what I'm doing is I'm shifting the conversation into... the industry is changing, like, drastically. On air is still important, it's still the centralized thing.
But it's dying compared to digital.
Web and everything like that is going to be, most jobs that you'll see coming up in the next 10 years are going to be based on online, whether it's how Facebook's trying to develop some form of TV element with their stuff, Instagram TV's doing something. So engagement rate and anything you can learn about social media, how important likes are, how views aren't that important, is where it's at right now. Like, that's the stuff that I've learned in the last 2 years. It's so important.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we were going next with what do you see?
Perfect.
What do you see in the future of this job market? Like, what changes? What things are going on? Did he steal your answer again?
I mean, I can like elaborate, I guess. I mean, the job market, it's no longer your stereotypical 9-to-5 buttoned-up suit coat sitting in a cubicle. Like, this is, minus the jacket, is what I would wear to work on a daily basis. I work when I start working. I can work from home. I was just in Albuquerque last week for work. Like, it's not, things are just constantly moving and constantly rolling so fast that, and digital is moving so rapidly. You need to be ready. So I'm getting on a tangent, so I'm just going to stop.
No, I agree. I mean, we have our on-air department. It used to be what it was. Like, that was where all our spots went, on air. Now, I mean, everybody had to switch over to digital. Digital's higher than on air now. It's much more important because that's how people consume their media, is the digital platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, everything like that. Is we're not watching TV in real time like we used to. Some people are sitting down to watch it at 10 p.m. when the drama airs, but most people are watching it later on Hulu or different platforms like that. So digital, 100%. If you can learn anything in the digital space, move that way.
Also, it's hard to accept, but so much is going to, like, I love film, and so I always want to look at a picture in horizontal, but everything is vertical now.
Yeah.
And so it kills me, but almost every job I've had for the last 3 years has been taking a beautiful shot that's laid out like that and figuring out the most creative way to tell it in a vertical frame that you can view on your phone, because that's how everyone watches their media now.
Yep.
Which is the most upsetting thing you can hear when you're so interested in film. But
Yeah, every spot that we do it for on air, which is the regular specs, and then we cut it to 1x1 for Instagram. We cut it to 9x16 for Snapchat. We cut it in every single different spec that you can imagine, so it can be consumed on the digital platform.
and you'll throw text over it because 90% of
Yes.
people that watch videos online watch them on silent.
Yep.
So audio doesn't matter. It does. It totally does. Don't let that ever ruin it for you. It's very I love sound design. It's my favorite part of editing, but it kills me every time that someone's like, "Yeah, nope, just play it on mute and let's see how it plays." And I'm like,
Yeah, and that's the thing, you have to be, a lot of times when we're putting the text over, you have to be able to understand it. You have to look at it objectively as the viewer and say, can I understand this without the audio?
it's so important.
And then even if you do throw text on there, you have to be really cognizant of algorithms, because
it's nuts.
they don't want text on your videos and images. Otherwise, they push them really low and nobody ever sees them. So it's an ongoing battle.
It's a weird world, guys.
It's very
We're living
weird.
in a weird world.
But I love it.
You're sharing so much good stuff, but in a few moments we're going to start taking questions from our studio audience. If you have a question for the panel or a specific panelist, please head over to the microphone over there and wait in line, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists a question, and you guys can all get ready for that. So, individual questions for Joe. You've worked as an editor on multiple shows now. What editing softwares have you used so far in your professional career? And how does editing for a production company like Shareability differ from editing for a TV show?
Okay. So in terms of editing software, they're all important. I haven't professionally used Premiere yet, but I have used, when I started and I was in news for a little bit, I used Final Cut 7. That's obviously gone now. Forget it ever existed.
RIP.
Yeah, but Avid has been the primary one that I use, and it's super important. More people are using Premiere now, which is good. It's it's a cheaper alternative. It gives you an opportunity to use something that's a little cheaper. But I still think, and we'll find out in a second how everyone else feels, I still think Avid's the main version. When you go into multiple post offices I've been in, everybody's on Avid. So that's the one that's most important, I think. Final Cut X, believe it or not, is starting to make a resurgence, mostly because of how important social has been. It's very cheap. It's like $300 for a license that lasts forever because they want people to use it. So and they've made leaps and bounds since it started. It really, really sucked when it first came out. They made huge mistakes. But in theory, if it actually took off, it could change how editing's done. When I've edited in Final Cut X, I'm using Avid right now, but when I've edited in Final Cut X, I have cut my edit times in half.
Wow.
It's so much faster. But it takes a second to convince everybody to use it because it's so different. It's like reinventing the wheel, and everyone's like, why would we do that at all? But they've changed things that just streamline editing. So unfortunately, you have to learn all of them. Because Premiere, Paige is using Premiere. Are you using?
I use Premiere if I ever
Okay.
video edit.
So there, everyone's important. But what I was going to say is the biggest thing is you forget, you make a keyboard. You essentially design your keyboard as an editor. And you set up your hotkeys universally to what you like. And some people will be like, that's not the proper way to do it. But whatever, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're finishing a cut. So I've always had a keyboard, and I take that keyboard between each editor, because you can reset the keyboard on that. So even when I was on Final Cut Pro, I was using an Avid version keyboard. When I'm in Avid, I'm using an Avid version keyboard with part Final Cut Pro. I'm sure Premiere will be the same way. But you can set your keyboard to whatever you want. And as an editor, that's, I think, the most important tool you have between jobs, because it doesn't matter what you know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Sorry, I talked way too long.
That's all right. Paige, you were the 2017 Synopsys Rising Star Award winner. What were some of the things that you've done to cement yourself in this industry, and how can students who are about to graduate find the same success that you have had so far?
Sure, yeah, I think, Reagan, you kind of touched on this before, but doing things that nobody else wants to do, especially when you're first starting off in the industry, do everything that you can to make yourself stand out to your bosses, because there's a million other people that they're looking at every day, but if you're standing out to them, then they really appreciate you and want to help you move along. I was nominated for that award by my boss. It was unbeknownst to me that they were doing that. So to have my bosses recognize that how hard I was working was I was very proud of that. And so I think that it's just, doing as much as you can. And I would always tell my boss that I'm trying to do whatever I can to make her life easier. And that's what I did when I was a production assistant throughout the whole reign of that. And since I've moved up since then, but I think most of it was telling my boss that I want to make her life easier.
Yeah, and we're going to move into our question and answer right
Sure.
now. So our first question, please.
Hi, I have a question for those of you that went to LA right away or ended up in LA. I'm just curious when you decided it was time to go to LA or what preparations you made before you went out there.
For me, I actually moved 2 weeks after graduation. It was because I got an internship. I'm not sure. I think I would have probably moved either way, but I wanted to wait until I had something concrete before I moved out there. I know a lot of people that have moved out there without a job and found one out there, and I think it's different for everyone. But for me, I wanted to get out there as soon as possible because I thought personally that if I didn't do it right after I graduated, I might not ever do it. So that worked for me.
That's totally legit. I was a little more skeptical, obviously, as I said before, but the important thing to remember is, I think you want to get out as fast as possible because the sooner you start, the sooner you can advance, because it's all about experience and a little bit of luck, too. You have to fall into something, meet the right person, and keep moving. But in terms of being ready, you should probably have a little bit of money saved, and you should prepare to not be working for a little bit. I know a lot of people come out and they expect to find something right away, and sometimes you'll come out in the off season and there won't be a show available. A lot of our alumni are really great at helping people out, but if they're in between seasons, there's nothing we can do. And if it's a dry spell, and there are dry spells a lot in LA, you can't find work for 4 months.
Yeah.
So you want to be ready. Yeah. So have a little bit of money banked, but it's not terribly hard either.
Next question, please.
Hey guys, so I think you guys touched on a lot about getting involved in the student programs on campus like Titan TV and things like that. What advice do you have for us as students now to help with time management between class and doing all these extracurricular activities and helping people out doing that? Thank you.
Color code a planner. But no, seriously, you're a student. Everybody is in the same boat as you. Everybody's going to be frantically trying to finish an assignment 5 minutes before it's due online, and people are balancing jobs and other work. I think the biggest thing is helping each other, because everybody wants their show to be a success in Titan TV, and that's where people need to band together. You can cut shoot times down drastically if you have 2-3 extra people. Having those extra people on hand to set up lights, very beneficial. So you need to help each other out. Even though it might add more to your plate, you might end up getting more free time in return.
But I think too, we oftentimes think, we don't have enough time in a day, but we have more time than we think.
Yeah.
I feel like when I was in college, I went to class in the morning, then I went to my internship, then I went back to class, then I went to Titan TV, and then I went to bartend until 9 o'clock at night to save money to move to LA. I mean, there's time in the day to do it, and it's just how bad do you want it?
All really good advice.
Next question.
Hi. So earlier you guys were talking about how it's important to keep connections with all these alumni that have already graduated and such. What are some ways that you could constantly keep up with them without coming out as a pest or something like that?
Annoying?
Being annoying, exactly. Thank you.
I guess I don't know. That's a hard question.
It's a good question.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. Go ahead.
Don't email them every week.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Stay in contact with them enough, maybe say hello on, add them on LinkedIn or
Sure.
something, and then maybe send them an email in a couple months checking in. I mean, with me personally, with Brenda, when I met her, talked to her, and then I emailed her right away after to establish the relationship. I emailed her maybe another time in between there to check in, and then another time when we were when I found that this job was available. So I mean, it's about checking in and keeping that relationship, but not being overbearing. You know, you kind of just have to gauge it.
Yeah, like if you're planning to move out, maybe every like couple months.
Yeah.
Like as you're building up towards it, being like, hey, I'm thinking about moving out in September. You know, I know, I don't know if you have anything going on or whatever, but maybe please consider me, and just kind of like that stuff. And then maybe following up later after you get out there. That won't be a pest at all.
Right.
If you're like, hey, just checking in to see how your family's doing, that's weird.
Next question, please.
I was just wondering, I'm a transfer student, so I don't have a lot of experience with stuff, but I came here when I was a junior. I hear all these stories about people going and holding boom mics when they were a freshman. Do you have any advice for people who come here halfway through their degree to be able to finish here and get enough experience?
Hold them as a junior. Like literally, that's what it is. As a senior, we'd go to, right, so you see the board. People put up the sheet, and there's empty slots. People don't want to, you know, some people don't want to do lights. People have plans on weekends. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing anything, as a senior, I would be like, yeah, I'll run audio. Like, I'll just go out, and I'll, like, help out, extra set of hands.
Yeah.
If you're not doing anything, you want to be involved, that's, like, it's that simple. I know it's easier said than done, right? Because, like, you might not know everybody. You might not know the show at all. You might never know. And, like, at the end of the day, you're in college. It's a lot of, like, there's a lot of clicks. Like, shows form, and it feels uncomfortable. But I promise you, if you sign up on that sheet and you come, you're not going to feel unwelcome. They'll, like, welcome you with open arms.
Yeah, it's never too late.
It's never too late, and just sign up. Just sign up.
Yeah, and our last question?
Hey, so, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently in college or just in your early career first starting out?
That's a good question. Ooh. I think, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, I would have done different stations a bit more to get a little bit more well-versed on each separate thing in radio, TV, film. But aside from that, I wouldn't change anything because the way that I did what I did is how I got to where I am right now. So, I mean, like we mentioned before, we went on a tangent about how much we love Oshkosh, but I wouldn't change anything because everything I did really helped me and made me who I am.
I mean, I basically retweet everything you just said. But if maybe like somehow get more involved on campus for something that's not directly related to RTF, you know, I was in Titan TV, you know, WRST Film Society, and then there was International Film Society, but like Reeve Union Board. I was part of Res Life, which was a lot of fun. I was actually a front desk worker, and like getting to know all the students and other majors, like that was actually a blast. I think you can still take those skills even outside of organizations that aren't within RTF or even your minor. Everything's transferable, and you're gonna get to know so many more people and make more connections, and you just never know what could happen.
Yeah, anything else to add?
Echoed all of that. I wouldn't change anything really either. I think that's the most important. Mm-hmm. You don't know where anybody, regardless of if they're RTF or not, you don't know where anybody's going. It's so weird how people stumble into, I mean, like they're good at it, they don't just stumble into it, but people will end up in some form of media, and all of a sudden it was somebody that you like casually talked to at, while you were getting like Scotty. Is Scotty still a thing? I don't even know what's here. All right, so like you're getting a sub, and you're casually talking to somebody, and you talk to them every day, that is something, like that person goes on, ends up being a president of a company, and all of a sudden you're like in charge of their social media, because like you knew them. It's weird.
That happens every day in LA. You know, you meet somebody, and then you get to talking with them, and then all of a sudden you find out they're the VP of Sony. Like, you have to be, seriously.
No, she's right.
Seriously, this has happened to me before.
And it goes beyond alumni.
And you have to be personal, you have to be nice.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time. So I'd like to thank the talented members of the panel for coming back to campus and sharing their insight with us. Joe, Paige, and Regan, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge of the media industry. You've certainly given us a lot to think about for me and all the other students that are here to plan for our careers. I'd like to thank Claire Armstrong for organizing the panel, along with the RTF professors, engineers, and students who contributed to making the 9th annual Pro Perspectives panel happen. Thank you for joining us live on 90.3 WRST FM Oshkosh or Titan TV. I'm Matilda Cretins, and this has been the 9th Annual Radio TV Film Pro Perspectives Panel at UW Oshkosh. We'll see you next year.